What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Yeah, you know what we're going to be talking about today.
Right. We're recording this just a few days after the election, so it'll come out about a week after the election. So there's probably going to be some information that is fully up to date as of today. That's we're going to get some more updates as time goes on, as more ballots get counted. But it is quite clear that Donald Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. And the only reason I know 47 is not because I know how many presidents there have been, is those fucking hats that have
God.
45 and 47 on the side. I mean,
if you ever need to know anything about their party, it's on their T-shirt or hat.
That's right.
Any information you need,
or on a flag.
On a flag, the entirety of it is on some piece of apparel.
Right. Say what you want to say about Trump. The one thing he has done way better than basically any politician is branding. Somehow, he became this huge just brand, the Trump mega brand that he...
I mean, that's literally all he's done his entire life, is trying to sell a brand.
No,
and he's done not great, honestly, until now.
Well, right. The vibes have been okay, but his bankruptcies tell a different story.
Yeah, and I mean, Trump Steaks and Trump University
Trump
and
Airlines.
Trump Airlines. He's...
The Trump... There was a Trump vodka, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure there was. Yeah, he just... I don't know.
So, yeah, it's officially Jover. Republicans are in. They have obviously won the presidency. They have handily won the Senate. And it's very probable that they're going to walk away with the House as well. And then not to mention that they currently have a 6-3 Supreme Court justice alignment. And... we were hoping was for as Kamala to be elected and maybe one or two of those retire, and we replace them with a more moderate and or liberal judge. Definitely the opposite of that is going to happen.
Yeah. I'm sure Thomas and Alito are going to retire.
Which honestly, good riddance. I don't really care who they're replaced with. I don't think they're going to be more corrupt judges than they currently are. So even
but
Kavanaugh
here's the thing:
and Barrett,
if they stick around, then there's a chance that they will die or be forced to retire under an administration that would
in 4 years.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
so I'm hoping they don't, because if they retire, they're going to be replaced with some fascist preteens that will be there for the next.
Do you think they're going to try to replace somebody, one of those two, with somebody that is more right leaning than Kavanaugh or Barrett?
At least as right-leaning. I mean...
Well, because, they are pretty right-leaning by all accounts, but they don't have the baggage that, Thomas and Alito have, and they don't have quite as, just... They seem to be a little bit more moderate and aligned with, just pure, lawmaking and law...
Are you
deciphering?
You're talking about the
Barrett.
Handmaid's Tale and Judge Light over there. The people who helped overturn Roe.
Well, they were gonna do that. I don't think any Republican that they had chosen would have done that. I don't think it was them specifically. I think it was
the people who overturned Chevron. I mean, they've gone some super hard right rulings that walk all over precedent, and that's the thing is this is all precedent that they're fuck that. The people who are the president's immune.
Right. No,
I mean, I don't know how much more right. I don't know where you get moderate from that, I guess, is what I'm
not saying the rulings have been moderate. Their interpretations and the things that they put out about those cases have been more moderate than Thomas and Alito's statements. I'm not saying they're on the right side by any means, no doubt. But
I mean, I guess their statements are irrelevant. It's their rulings that matter.
Generally, yeah. No, I get that. But so to break the election down, I thought the New York Times did a great job in describing Trump's victory, basically coming down to this bet that his grievances with Biden's administration would just become the grievances of more than half the country, and just that they would believe him and that they would go off that vibe-based kind of feeling that like it sucks. I'm going to be better. And even though there's like ways you could argue that like none of it had to do with Biden as far as the economy really, and that his immigration policies were very, very slightly different than Trump's policies from 2016 to 2020, basically doing most of the same things that Trump would have done. But he did it the bad way because his name was Biden and it had a D next to his name.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is part of it. I think that part of it is things are, people always bitch about what's going on in the country and the economy's bad and there's no gerbs and whatever they like. It doesn't matter. It can be the best economy in our country's history at the time, and people are going to bitch about the price of this and the cost of that and good paying jobs. And a lot of those are always going to be valid grievances. Like, obviously we spend a lot of time bitching about the economy. But the reality is that turnout, I think, in elections defines how well our country is doing. And low turnout means our country's doing well because people get apathetic and complacent and lazy. And high turnout means that things are fucked and they want some change, right? So
2020 and 2024 means bad.
Yeah.
We've had pretty high turnout levels.
Yeah, well, think about it, going back to just our lifetime. So Clinton, economy was great. The 90s were awesome. Everything was, decent at that time.
Sure.
We had shitty voter turnout for the 2000 election then. And we got Bush because of it, right?
Well, right. That and a few other reasons.
But I mean, had we had better turnout, it wouldn't have even been
wouldn't
an
have
issue.
been close. Yeah.
And then Bush fucks up the entire planet, in so many ways, puts us into the biggest recession since the Great Depression, gets us into 2 wars. Everybody's life is a living hell. And then we get record turnout for Barack Obama. We elect our first black president, and we're seeing now how hard it is to elect minorities, right, of any sort. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. Obama
got his white card. Like, he didn't really, like, that's a funny, weird thing to say, but, like, he didn't, like, obviously he promoted, like, black issues, but, like, not really,
to any specific
and
level.
He didn't follow through with
but it's not like Kamala was going to be any different on that front.
No, I don't think she was either.
But then, but we get, 8 years of him. He fixes the problems. We go through a little bit of growing pains with it, but the economy, rebounds massively. 2016 rolls around. Shit is pretty decent. Like, it's not a big deal, but you still got people bitching about it the whole time, but that's going to happen. But nobody turned out. Right? Nobody turned out. I mean, we get basically the same thing that happened in 2000. Trump fucks everything up, like, in every conceivable way. Then we get into a recession.
Honestly, and I was thinking about this on the way here. Is I actually don't think, besides like Trump did fuck around with some tariffs, and that was definitely bad. I don't think that hurt the larger economy. I think it was mostly COVID.
COVID was a huge one, which he handled horribly.
Well, yeah, he handled the health crisis horribly. I don't think there was no good way to handle the economic crisis.
It was going to be an economic downturn no matter what, but the way that it was
to give the smallest amount of credit, we're just like keeping stuff above board here.
Absolutely. COVID was going to make whatever happened at the end of those 4 years worse, right?
Right.
But there was ways to have lessened the blow of that economic impact by, not denying that it was a thing that was going to go away when the sun came out and you injected bleach and shit. Like, if you'd put in...
I sort of disagree that would have made a difference economically speaking for our country, but...
The economy is all about people's confidence in the economy.
Consumer confidence is a thing, but, like, the real effects of COVID could not have been avoided, in my opinion.
No,
the real economic effects.
It's kind of like the Great Depression. The real effects of the Great Depression could have been avoided. Or, I mean, could not have been avoided. We were going to have a depression at that point.
Yep.
But the policies leading into it made that depression much worse than it needed to be. The same with our recession. Like every time you can look how bad we've seen recessions that did not fully culminate into the disastrous shit show they could have been, and we've seen recessions that did, and this one did.
Yeah, I mean,
I think his Tax Cuts and Jobs Act also did not do a whole lot of great for the economy.
No, I mean, it definitely put us in a worse spending deficit, and in that sense, it increased our deficit because we had to spend so much during COVID. So I guess I'll concede that there are certainly a few things that he could have done, and a couple things that he did that were really not helpful. I think this downturn crisis is somewhat unique in modern American history, in that we have not had a natural crisis of such such great heights basically since like 1912. Almost incomparable to today's economy.
No, and I completely agree. Like, I mean, credit where it's due in that sense. Yeah, COVID.
No,
deserves,
it's not credit. It's like that's just like COVID was.
Right.
It's a completely naturalistic disaster that there were not man-made policies, other than like actual fantastic.
Getting rid of the CDC. Can we talk about he literally disbanded the pandemic response team because that was an Obama era thing. That again would have been able to hopefully reduce the effects of this virus and the way that it spread and made us more prepared to handle it and had less people die. All of those things are bad for the economy.
True. So it without the foresight of or the a paranoia of the CDC or just like helping them be more prepared for a medical disaster, I don't see that there's any policy moves that could have directly impacted the effects of it, other than like you said, the spending and the tax cuts that made the deficit worse because of that. So that's fair, but we're not here to talk about COVID necessarily. It's just
part of
Biden.
My point was, regardless of what happened, we were not in a good way. The economy had slowed leading into the economy was heading for a recession whether COVID happened or not. That was every economic model basically says
we were overdue statistically speaking for a recession,
and the economy had cooled a lot before we hit it. And Trump is honestly lucky that he was the president handling COVID, because now he gets to bury that reality underneath
gets swept under the rug.
Because it was going to happen. It probably would not have been what it was obviously with the recession or with COVID, but that recession was happening no matter what. That was there. All the indicators were there.
I mean,
again, more policies of keeping interest rates down when they shouldn't have been down for so long.
That's true. The interest rate, I mean, they should have been much more reactive in early COVID in those interest rates and not allowing for home prices to skyrocket, because once they go up, they don't come back down very easily. So, there's definitely some things that we could have done to react better to COVID and not set them up for as bad as it was.
But my point being that whether whoever's fault it was, the reality was that America was not in a great spot for that election.
Sure.
People get mad with their current leadership when things aren't going well. So we had record turnout and elected Biden, and now things are going decently, and we had horrible turnout.
Yeah. I mean, this year you're saying we have horrible turnout? I think it's better than 2016. I think it's within 10% of 2020. So I don't even think you can say that we have bad voter turnout this time around.
16 million less Democrats.
Well, we also haven't fully counted. We've only counted 50% of California. I think it might be 60% now. My computer just crashed. That's super. So I don't think the voter turnout was all that terrible necessarily. Obviously, Kamala, didn't she receive what? 14 million less votes than Biden did? Something like that. 14, 15 million less. And Trump received basically the same, if not a little bit less than in 2020.
Less as well, yeah.
So I don't know. People just there certainly was a few less voters, but I don't think you could blaming the amount of voter turnout on this election is, I don't know. it feels like a cop out.
Why does it feel like a cop-out? I mean, that's a reality. Fewer people turned out to vote than they did in the last election.
It's a reality, but people could be driven to vote, obviously.
And that's all the point I was making was I was saying lower voter turnout than the last election to me says that things are currently better and people get apathetic because that's a trend that seems to go,
Yeah. I mean, I would the only thing I would say is that I think Democrats and Republicans would generally both say that the economy is still not good.
Yeah, but apparently it's not putting the amount of pain on them to get them to the voting booth that it did in 2020 or it did in 2008,
Maybe. I think it's the more Democrat messaging.
Oh, the Democrat messaging is horrible too. We should definitely talk about that.
But so one thing I did want
But it was horrible in 2020.
Well, yes, yes, that was luck and the reaction to the COVID, so that led to 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say that people should not look at 2016 as an aberration, they should look to 2020 as the aberration, and 2024 is the actual on trend.
Yeah,
I think that's probably right.
It's fair.
I think that's probably right.
It's absolutely fair.
But getting back to this election specifically, since we're very, very recent, we're only going to talk about it once. So wanted to look at some of the statistics for voter spreads for some of the swing states, because I think it's actually pretty interesting to if you zoom in on those 6 or 7 states versus the widespread. Obviously, Trump is going to win the popular vote by like 5 or 6 million. So that's it is what it is. But Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia all were within less than 1% to 2%. Either way. So those are extremely, extremely competitive races in the states that basically determined the election.
Yeah.
So,
but we lost every one of them.
Yes. Right. We definitely came out on the wrong side of that. But I don't think people are so much more crazy excited about Trump as much as they just disliked the Democratic messaging and Kamala's lack of messaging.
I think that's true, and I think that resulted in apathy. I mean, again, it still comes down to the voter turnout. Had we had, 3 or 4% more turnout in a number of them swing states, they would have went a different way, but people didn't feel compelled to take the time.
Sure.
And absolutely, Democratic messaging is 1,000% to blame for that. We've seen the mistakes of our actions over and over and over again.
Starting in 2015.
And we're just like, you know what? We should just do this again. We should just write again. Why not try it? This will be the time, guys. Right. I don't think that they pushed the abortion in the Supreme Court enough, and I think that was was one of their winning linchpins.
They pushed it a lot, but they didn't push it in the right way. Yeah. They didn't really talk about the actual effects of some of the states that are having abortion bans. And I do have a point in here about abortion bans. So of the 10 states or so that had some sort of abortion rights, varying levels on the ballot, 4 ratified abortion rights up to a certain extent, whether that's completely allowed them or to like a 24-week ban or something like that. So basically getting back to Roe v. Wade, I think, is kind of what those 4 states did. 3 states passed partial measures where like a little bit, maybe somewhere between like a 12-week and Roe v. Wade 24-week. And then 3 states were less favorable. Nebraska ratified a 12-week ban. Still pretty tight there.
Yeah, that's
not as bad as Florida's 6-week ban, which is almost like banning outright.
Yeah, you might as well just ban outright at that point.
And South Dakota did not vote to reverse a total ban. So some mixed results there. Generally better than not, but
then Trump even won a lot of those states where they did ratify or got over 50%, which was a weird thing
too.
too.
By a huge margin, even in Florida.
Florida got over 50% for codifying abortion rights. They needed 60%, and they got what, like 54?
55, I think, roughly 55. Yeah. So, and that was 5% above Kamala. So basically, in every state that had any abortion ballot measure, that ballot measure, whether it passed or not, did way better than Kamala. So like clearly that issue was the right issue. They just did not find a way to tap into that at all. Which is
insane to me.
Insane because you have a. I mean, that's identity politics, so it's not clearly is not what it used to be as a marking, as a like identifier. But as a woman running for president on a women's right issue.
How did you drop the ball on that? Like,
well, that's the Democrat messaging issue essentially, and Bernie Sanders, I think, probably said it pretty well. It's not all inclusive, but it's a tweet that like the Democrats lost because they turned their backs on working Americans.
Absolutely,
and they shouldn't be surprised when working Americans turn their back on them. And the Democrats have been turning their back on working Americans for over a decade, 2 decades.
And I think that and it's not even that they're, I mean, they are turning their back on them, obviously a lot less than the Republican Party is turning their back on them, but that comes back to messaging. It's not, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're actually turning their back on them. It has to do with the fact that they are not messaging properly. Like, they never focused on working Americans.
I mean, I think they are still a donor capitalist class and party, and their policies thus reflect that. I don't think the Republicans are any different.
No,
but at least they came out of all this as the party of change, because that's what they've become. It's not real change. No. It's not change in any way that's going to help average Americans.
No.
But that's the
perception. They talked to the grievances of average Americans, and that's where
Trump made everybody believe they were real, and that they he's going to fix it.
And that's where the Democrats felt like they never went and talked to the grievances about the grievances. They never explained why. The policies that were going to make their lives better, why inflation is coming down, and the policies and what they've done to make that happen. Like, they had the policies there, they had the policy wins, they have the numbers, and they can say, I'm going to make a gallon of gas cheaper for you, I'm going to make groceries cheaper for you, I'm bringing housing prices down because this is what we've been doing, and you can see the trends and it's working. And they never talk to that. They're like, I hear that you aren't getting paid enough, and this is...
Yeah, and I think I joked that I thought this election was mostly based off vibes, and people were making vibe-based voting choices, certainly, especially on the Republican side, besides them thinking all the fake problems that Trump made up are like the actual problems they're facing, and that those are the problems that are going to make their lives better if they're fixed. But I was thinking, is it that Democrats just don't want to talk policy because they don't think that the discussion of the intricacies of policy is actually effective messaging?
You don't need to talk policy on that level, but you can talk the results of the policy. Like, I am going to do this, and then if people ask you how, then you have that policy to back up that rhetoric. But you have the rhetoric where the Republicans come out and they're just like, we're going to fix it all in 4 years. We're going to make it so gas is cheap and groceries are cheap and Mexicans are gone and everybody's going to be happy and women are going to be forced to have babies and you're just going to love it all and everything's going to be perfect. And you're like, how? And I've got a concept of a plan. It's top secret. It's how I defeated ISIS. And he brought that back. He said he defeated ISIS in 90 days, which he did not.
No. They're still around.
They're still there. They never went away. But he said that before his first campaign, and he comes on and he says this shit. They could do the same thing, and they could still have the policy to back it up, the actual facts. But they could appeal to the same emotions, the same vibes in similar ways, and they don't.
Right. So I agree. They do this weird middle ground where they don't talk about what they've done, and they don't talk about how they're going to make things better. They just talk about how you've had things taken away and it's going to be great if you elect me.
I think they really dropped the ball on Gaza as well.
Oh my God.
Like every place they had both hands ready to catch and then just turned around and walked away. Dropped the ball on that repeatedly.
I mean, I think there's definitely they definitely should have, and they definitely should be doing the opposite of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think it's the most fair critique to say that within a year the United States is going to change foreign policy that's been in place for almost
no, absolutely not
a century,
but
century.
Yeah,
century?
It's been close to a century. Well, 1947ish, 1950ish,
right?
Yeah,
75 years. I think it's a little bit of a ask for them to pivot within a year. Not to say that I don't think they should. I'm just saying, like, you're asking the federal government.
It was just the rhetoric. They always came out with the Israel has the right to defend itself first and foremost, and like that is absolute, and we stand behind that. But also, you know, they probably should be a little nicer in how they murder,
in how they colonized the West Jerusalem.
You know, they're being sort of mean about it, and we wish that they'd be a little less mean about it. That was always the vibe I got when they talked about it. And it's like,
true.
They could have came out and said Israel is our ally, but we do not agree with their actions, and will take action to curb.
Well, and they had potentially they could have used long-standing international laws that we are supposedly abide by in our arms sales to a country that's committing human rights errors. I don't know, human atrocities.
Yeah.
So we had I think they definitely had enough where they should have done more. Obviously, even if it was just in their rhetoric, but there was certainly some policy.
It's a campaign. It's all rhetoric until you pass policy. You know, we weren't actually asking them to do anything. We're just asking them to acknowledge these issues and pretend like they cared about them.
Right. Right. Just let one, Palestinian person speak at the DNC.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes.
It's all it would have taken, was
it would have helped.
A little bit.
Wouldn't have swayed the whole.
Probably wouldn't have swayed the election, but it was again something you dropped the ball. How many people stayed home because that was the issue they felt passionate about and didn't feel like anybody represented them? So the
voting blocks of 18 to 29 swayed, just skyrocketed to the right. In this election, and I think a majority of that has to do with left-leaning people of that age group being very, very just disaffected by the Democratic Party. So I think it's a huge factor. It wouldn't have been such a huge shift in that way if those voters hadn't stayed home.
I think the other thing that they really dropped the ball on hugely was immigration.
Well, I don't. That's nothing new. Like they just capitulate to the right on everything, besides abortion and trans and LGBTQ rights, essentially. So, like, of course they're going to do that. Like, we've talked about it ad nauseum why they're so idiotically stupid for just caving into the narrative that Trump has set.
But it was bad campaigning. On top of that, because
why be the less conservative candidate, versus a conservative candidate?
Well, and they were chasing moderates, so the conservatives have been running this rhetoric forever, right? And they just kind of went hands off on it. They refused to ever really take a solid stance on immigration. The Democrats did, as far as like, we don't want to piss off the conservatives who are really scared of the Mexicans, and we don't want to, the conservative moderates or whatever. So we don't want to like to go one way too far that way, but we don't want to go too far the other way and piss off all the progressives by getting too heavy on immigration. And then they're like, shit, man, immigration's the big topic this time around. I guess we'll just do what they're doing and just be like, yeah, close borders, fuck Mexicans. That'll work. It's like, what? They already own that brand. You're not going to come back. So all you're doing is saying they were right. Their policy is right. They're clearly the people who should be handling this issue when they're not. And it's like you need to go back the opposite way and be like, hey, immigrants are an important part of our country and our democracy and our economy, and we need to do something to make sure that they can come here legally and work here legally and pay taxes and do all those things. And we have a plan to reform immigration to make that happen. And like, again, no, executive order, close the border. Let's just do the Republican, just give us, just copy their homework, the Mr. Bean copying the homework on immigration.
It's pretty much the dumbest thing they could have done, for sure. didn't make any sense to me. But another really dumb thing that doesn't make any sense is apparently there were a number of states that had a ballot measure to enshrine within their state constitutions that non-citizens shouldn't be able to vote.
Yeah.
Which is it's already the law in 50 states.
Was it Missouri you're talking about?
There were multiple
yeah?
states that had that as a question mark.
Missouri did it to get
and ranked choice voting. They combined it. Yeah. Meanwhile, D.C. woohoo passed ranked choice voting, which is like cool. You affect the least amount of senators and Congress people of any district ever. So congratulations. But I mean, if they can make it work and make a couple other states nearby, hopefully on the East Coast, kind of get every win for ranked choice voting is a win for America.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
But it does feel a little hollow when I bet as a constitutional amendment to the state constitution of Missouri, it makes it more difficult to repeal that portion of it in order to even get a question of should we have it or not, to then first repeal that amendment and then have a question of to do it. So like,
and that's all this was preemptive stuff. It wasn't even like ranked choice voting was on the ballot for them. They don't have it. They're just like, this could happen and that would be bad for us. So we're just going to be like, fuck Mexicans, right? Also, ranked choice voting's now illegal.
Exactly. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Hats off to Missouri for, just being completely pieces of shit on that end. So do we want to jump into Trump's agenda here?
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot to go through. I don't even. Maybe we should just maybe we should just stick to the election based for this.
I think it was weird to me. I have never been so mad at being right. I say I'm horrible at predicting elections. And I was trying to be overly pessimistic about this one. And I got a lot of flack for it for a lot of reasons. Like, I said right off the bat, Kamala's not a popular character or a popular candidate.
We put out a whole episode where we spent 15 minutes ragging on her as a potential replacement for Biden.
And the people who came out like, you're just being sexist, it's because she's a woman, or like whatever, she's super qualified. I'm like, I'm not denying that she's qualified, and I'm not saying this because she's sexist. I'm saying that, like, look at her fucking poll numbers. Look at her poll numbers when she ran for president the first time.
Yeah.
Look at how much enthusiasm she was able to.
She was a better candidate.
Yeah. So I was like, this is why I said she was a bad candidate. And then people, as soon as she picked up momentum, and even I thought, I was like, okay, maybe I judged incorrectly. And people are like, you're gonna eat your words. You're gonna be backpedaling so hard. I'm like, please, I want to feed me that humble pie. That's all I want to eat right now is humble pie. But no, I get to be smug in our universal misery now with the I told you so's, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah. So I'm also on subreddit Late Stage Capitalism, of which I'm banned for basically saying that, like, I do think Trump will be worse for America, and I do think Kamala will be less worse. That's enough to get you banned on there. But anyway, they are very smug in that they're like, liberals need to atone for like who they're supporting and what they're supporting. And like it's good they feel bad. It's like, how is this helping anybody? It's not helping you. It's not helping any Americans. You're just being a fucking jackass on Reddit.
Yep. No, it's true. I do think that there's a lot of people, accelerationists, I guess, people who want to see the demise.
That's what I'm saying. This is an accelerationist dream. It's almost kind of making me want to be like turn the cheek to the whole revolutionary side instead of the reform side. I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. Like, if we start to see some crazy shit from Trump, which seems like we're gonna, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be the person who like reacts to an election and is like, oh, it sucked, and this person's the president. Now we got to tear it all down. It's like, no, you can't do that just because you lost, or the person you kind of wanted to be and, lost, but.
And I'm not moving to that camp until they start doing stuff that will basically nullify elections.
Sure.
Like, but
yeah, I think that's a good line.
That's kind of where we're at though, right? Like,
right.
they've got 2 years to pass anything they can do to make sure that
at least 2 years.
At least 2 years to pass anything they want to give themselves as much power as possible, and they've got no brakes on that train. The only brakes on that train are they don't have a 60 vote majority in the Senate.
Right, they can't have. They don't have a supermajority, so there could still be some filibustering, but it's not going to be enough to keep everything down. And I did the math on some of they haven't called the House yet, but I think they're actually going to come away with the House 221 to 215 in Republican favor. So they're going to have a fairly comfy, not super comfy by any means. We're talking like a waiting room couch comfy, still a couch, and you still get a little. It's better than standing. They have that much room to do whatever they want. It's enough to do some real damage.
It's enough, and then they've got the courts on their side.
Well, right, yeah, of course that's not going to change, and if they change some of those people out, then it's going to be solidified for another 40 years. So,
so that's just it. If they start doing stuff that makes it, it starts making our elections look more like the quote unquote elections they have in Russia, for example,
right,
and stuff
or
like
the
that.
Elections post 1933.
Yeah,
in Germany.
Yeah, exactly. Those types of elections, which is very possible that they could start trying to push that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot overly state this. I really, really hope that Trump supporters were right in that they don't believe that Trump is going to subvert democracy.
Yep.
I cannot overly state
Please
this.
prove us wrong. We aren't the arrogant fucks who have to be right about everything.
Right.
Like, I want to be wrong.
I never wanted to be more wrong about somebody in office.
I want every time they're like, oh, he didn't mean it. You took it wrong.
Yes.
I want you to be right. I want to have misread it. I wanted to have given him far more criticism than he deserved. Yeah. I want it. I want you to be right. You're not.
I don't think. I am definitely don't have any real faith just yet that he's not totally going to do a lot of things that are going to cross a lot of lines. The first and foremost being the two cases against him are going to be completely be 2 of the 3 of them are going to be completely shot. We will have to see though at the end of November here. Interested to see what's going to happen in New York if the sentencing for the felony election.
The 26th, right?
26, yeah. That's when the sentencing is supposed to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the judge has authority to do anything
president
to president-elect. I don't know what that even looks like. I would think he's been, convicted, and this is the sentencing, and it doesn't matter. I would think, but...
we're in uncharted territory. This is not something that has ever happened
Let's
before.
say they do put him in jail. Like, J.D. Vance gets sworn in as president, and then he, then he just let Trump out.
And here's the other problem is now Trump is our only minor saving grace in this whole thing.
Right.
Because he's irrational, unpredictable, and fucking stupid, right? Like he doesn't.
Right. He follows the squirrel, the shiny object. Like his people that were in his cabinet in 2016 and 2020. They talked about that all the time. It was so difficult to keep him focused on one task. Yeah. He was all about the shiny object and the person that he thought was just like the best person to have in the room at the time, not necessarily the best person to do any particular job.
So. That was what led to all the incompetence that slowed them down the first 2 years from achieving everything that they wanted. That was our biggest insulator from Trump himself.
Well, and Republicans who are vanguard, the old bourgeoisie who were not like MAGA.
Yeah.
Now it's mostly MAGA, and there's no brakes.
Yeah.
All gas.
Yep. So, but what would happen if Trump gets removed from that position in some way, shape, or form? Vance has no problem focusing on a task. Vance has no problem.
Well, and he's much more fundamentalist, through Christianity and Project 2025. He is very, very connected to the authors of Project 2025, much more so than Trump. Trump's like, national, heritage, whatever. Heritage Institute,
the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, he's like, they got some great ideas. I'm looking forward to implementing their policies, but he doesn't personally care about any of those policies. He just cares about himself.
Yeah, he just wants
keeping himself popular.
All he wants to do is go to rallies. If he could just and like I wish we could have just told him is like you can just campaign all the time. You're not running for president. You just campaign all the time. We'll just throw a rally for you every week and every
you can just continue to shit on anything and everything that anybody does.
Whatever you want. We won't even we will even be like, yeah, good job. We'll let you go do that on your own time and then let the adults run the country. That'd be great.
Right. And the only reason I don't think that JD Vance is going to become the next Dick Cheney is because Trump is too concerned about who appears to be the figurehead.
Right.
And if it looks like JD Vance is doing too much, he's not going to like that.
I'm not
He's
worried.
not going to let him get
JD Vance
power.
is no puppet master. JD Vance, I mean, has basically been benched since he got out there, and Trump hates him as it is. So I don't foresee, and we saw.
I don't think he hates him, but like he definitely doesn't trust him to, speak on his own at rallies. Not that it matters anymore. But before the election.
So yeah, and congrats, guys! You elected a guy who doesn't know how to order fucking donuts. Like
what?
JD Vance. I can't imagine voting for somebody who's like, yeah, how long have you worked here? So can I get a donut of some sort?
Yeah, that was the most cringy thing I think that we saw on the campaign trail.
It was, but like by a lot.
A good amount.
Like this is clearly not a human being, people. Like this man.
So awkward. Not as bad as like Mark Zuckerberg awkward, but like
no, but also clearly not a human being.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. Like it's cringe, and like it's clear that he's never tried to do that on camera before. I think he's much more. You saw it in the VP debate.
Yeah,
like
no, he was much more articulate when he's in
his a little bit more in his own element, not being filmed and filming a random person who clearly doesn't want to talk to them. Like if there was a Trump person there, it would have been just fine.
Probably,
but because she didn't want to be on, she probably was. she just didn't want to be on camera, so like that was weird.
Yeah, that was super weird. Yeah, I don't know. This is gonna be a long, bumpy ride. I think some of the shit that I've seen, though, the fallout from this and some of the frustrations that people really have too, just on a societal level, is the amount of hate rhetoric coming from the right now. I mean, we're just
Madison
talking
Square
about
Garden fucking campaign. That whole rally was like probably the biggest hate rally that they've had so far.
Yeah, and now that they won, the people who were the ones that were still left under their rock a little bit are coming out in full force. You know, people were lighting off fireworks at 5:30 in the morning. I had followers telling me after they won. So 5:30 in the morning, Wednesday morning, their Trump supporter neighbors are lighting off fireworks. I've had my women mutuals and friends online have just the vile things that people are coming into their comments and saying now. Like we're talking the whole Nick Fuentes, "Your body, my choice" line is just overrun TikTok comment sections.
So yeah, I'm interested to see if and how that translates to more real life scenarios. Social media is known to be volatile and like to bring out and to allow space for people like that. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
No, I'm not
that
surprised.
We've seen more of that. I am hoping that we don't see more of that in real life. But
we're going to. I mean, there's no. It always.
I don't disagree. I'm just that's what I'm looking out for. I don't really like. I get it. Like social, like you shouldn't say that on social media, and like you shouldn't be hateful in comment sections for sure. But like that's where you see it.
I do feel like it's the barometer though of like if it spikes there, you will see not as much of a spike, but a following spike in in real life. I mean, because these people are just playing out their fantasies of shit they wish they could do in real life behind a screen where they're protected, right?
Yeah, I guess my counter would be X, and X has been a right wing cesspool for over a year, and we haven't seen like much coverage of like overt like conservative violence against anybody, like
right,
really.
But they hadn't been emboldened yet by an election win, and that's where I think that's what I was tying this back into the election win, and now you're seeing it spill off into other forms of social media. So it's like, yeah, they live in their true social and their excess pools. So when they start spilling out into Other social media spheres that you don't normally see them enforce on is then it's the next step is obviously spilling out into the real world. I mean, obviously there was that Texas University rally thing that just happened where the guy is like "Women are property" running around with a flag at
that's pretty fucked up.
And then he got punched, I'm pretty sure.
Well,
and he did get arrested, but that's spilling. That's that hate comment in real life. That's a hate comment, weird science to life, right?
Yeah, and that's a dude hate trolling and hate commenting hundreds of times.
IRL.
Yeah, but doing it one time in real life. Yeah. That's
so that's I think so people need to just stay focused, stay safe on that aspect because
I've heard a lot. Not a lot, but I've heard some about like now that this is happening. Like, don't tell anybody that you're, voted for Kamala. Don't tell anybody that you're pro, trans or LGBTQ rights. Like, don't tell anybody you have those people as friends. Don't tell anybody. Like, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction. I think
don't do that. I think you need to say that out loud. I think right now is the time that these people need to be acknowledged as human and a part of the society with allies.
They haven't started rounding people up. We still have. I'm not saying we have a good chance, but there's still a fight to be had.
Oh, for sure.
If the threat of democracy being taken away is real,
civil unrest is still that step before revolution, right? Like we still have that, and that's the point we're at. Is civil unrest. This is it's gonna suck, but take to the streets and get tear gas type of shit that is the next step before it goes to that.
Like, there's still pressure that can be put on the Republican Party, specifically Donald Trump, because he is sometimes susceptible to pressure from a large majority of a population. So, like, if there was any Republican, like, he's the most vain, he cares the most about people on a non-regular basis. I'll put it that way.
Yep. Anyway, I think we've got a guest for a second episode that's waiting on us here now, so we'll have to wrap this one up since we got started a little late. But yeah, we just wanted to vent about the election anyway. I think was kind of
I'm hoping to dive into some Trump policies and Trump agenda here with Tien Brando.
Yeah,
Tennessee Brando.
Yep. All right, he'll be our guest next week, released next week. So if you like him, feel free to drop in and watch that. And thanks guys. As always, check out our website, offthewagon.com. You can get merch there for both the podcast and Off the Wagon. Follow Off the Wagon and Let the Meat Toast on all the socials. We also have subscriptions, Patreon stuff you can do.
Yeah, definitely check out the YouTube membership. I think that community is just a little bit more easy to grow, and it seems like there's a lot more going on there. Yeah. Obviously, if Patreon's your thing, we would appreciate it.
However you want to support us, and if it's just listening or watching in video form, that supports us as well. So
just share it. If you like it, share it. Like that's the minimum. I mean, that's not the minimum. We love you listening. So like, obviously, keep listening if you enjoy it. But if you want to do anything to help promote or help the podcast, just share it with.
And if you want to talk to us to YouTube, you can comment on all these episodes. They're all up in video form there, so you can comment.
Yeah, or if you're a member, you can direct message us, and we're pretty responsive. So
absolutely. Well, thanks again, guys. Welcome to a new level of hell, and we will see you next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.